Welcome to the Prosperity Lounge where growth gets personal. I'm Joey Ruffalo. If you're here today, chances are you've done a lot of inner work. You're self aware, thoughtful, you learn the language of growth. And yet, when it comes to love, something still feels off. In today's conversation, Diane McDowell helps us understand why that disconnect isn't a failure, it's a nervous system response. She explains how the brain learns to protect us and how those reflexes follow us into adulthood. Why emotional safety, not better communication, is what actually changes relationships. This episode isn't about fixing your partner, it's about understanding yourself more clearly and leading love from a place of calm instead of survival. If you ever wondered why you could be grounded everywhere else in life, but still feel unsettled in connection, this conversation will give you language for what's been happening and clarity on what comes next. So pull up a chair. You're about to enter Prosperity Lounge.
Grab a seat, sip some wisdom, and stay a while. This is the Prosperity Lounge where growth gets personal. Step inside, we're breaking chains.
Welcome back to the Prosperity Lounge. I'm your host, Joey Ruffalo, and today we're diving into one of the most important and least understood parts of human connection, emotional safety. My guest is Diane McDowell, therapist turned coach, creator of the Brain to Heart Code, and a leading expert on emotional wiring and relationship reflexes. She helps high-achieving, emotionally intelligent people break their hidden patterns that sabotage closeness, not by changing their partner, but by rewiring themselves. This guy needs that. If you ever wondered why you shut down, overthink, or walk on eggshells with the person you love most, today's conversation is going to make everything make sense. So Diane, thanks for pulling up a chair and welcome to the Prosperity Lounge.
Thank you, Joey. I am so glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you. I'm looking forward to this conversation since we talked. And yeah, this Brain to Heart Code, rewiring yourself, this emotional connection. I mean, your work comes from this like powerful lived experience. I mean, we were talking a little bit. You grew up in a religious cult from the birth to the age of 14, completely isolated.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you had dyslexia that wasn't identified until you entered high school and not even knowing how to read. But what struck me most from that was this constant thing you told me about. Because you didn't learn from books, you had to learn people. And I was like, you got some street smarts there. How did growing up in such an environment shape the way that you learn to read people, sense danger, or maybe even like navigate relationships?
Oh, yeah. So, what I learned was that I was never safe and that I was trying to control my outside environment to create safety. And I didn't realize at the time that most of us do that. Most of us try to control our environment to feel safe. And as I started kind of learning about how to be in relationships and what do healthy relationships look like and all that stuff, that's when I started noticing how our brain gets hijacked. But I didn't realize that trying to control everything around us didn't work, which is what so many of us do. But growing up without emotional safety, and truly many of us do grow up without feeling emotionally safe.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to find it in controlling things.
I see. So where we're not safe in other areas, we try to create that safety for ourselves in those other areas like you're talking about, which may not be conducive to what we're looking for, but it's just we're kind of transferring that from something to something else. It seems like you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wrap my little head around
Yeah.
that.
So and it is kind of hard. So here, let me kind of back up a little and kind of see if we can clean it up a little to make a little more sense. So I was raised in a religious cult and I didn't learn to read and I was kind of in culture shock at
Mm.
14 when I got placed in public school. And what I started doing was kind of manipulating people, but I didn't realize it was manipulating people so that I could feel safe. So I would try to get other people to like me, do extra things, take on more on projects. And a big part of it was that I wasn't good at books. So I had watched people and learned.
Okay.
And I think part of it is intuitive too.
Mm-hmm.
But I watched people and started learning how to get what I wanted and manipulate other people and things around me to feel safer.
Interesting. So you became this intuitive, hyper aware people person. Were you also using
Pleaser.
people pleasing as a survival skill as well?
Yes, very
Okay.
much so, and I think a lot of us do is we don't feel good about ourselves, so we find our sense of feeling good. Here's what I started to learn was I wanted other people to think I was great so that I could think I was great. I didn't see
Oh,
myself as valuable, worthy, and lovable, so I wanted other people to see me that way so that I could feel that way.
okay. Hmm. I'm connecting with that a little bit because that's very interesting. You said that. Um, what did that look like for you as a young person going through that intuitive, hyper aware, people pleasing survival skill mode?
What I found was a lot of, which I didn't know it at the time, but it's manipulative. If you think about anytime we people please someone else, we say yes when we don't want to, we agree to things we don't really want to, we
Hmm.
say we'll take on more than we want to. When we people please, we are actually manipulating someone else. So, what I
Mm.
learned to do was change me to fit what other people wanted, um, so that I could get them to like me, to engage with me. And so this is where I started developing, where I started to notice the brain hijack too,
Mhm.
was when I started to notice that no matter how many, as a therapist, as I got my degree, no matter how many skills I knew, no matter how many tools I knew, I couldn't use them when my brain would get hijacked. So, in some ways, I used people pleasing to manipulate people so that I wouldn't get hijacked.
Hmm.
So, this is sounding a little complicated and I want to make it simpler, but essentially the brain our brain is wired for safety, not connection. And so this is kind of the neuroscience behind it.
Sure, sure.
Our brain is designed to scan for danger and look for danger all the time. And so as we see danger, we try to control that with different things. So we manipulate people a lot of times. We people please to get to feel safer. So it's really not a intentional harm, like we're not intentionally trying to harm people or anything. It's
Mhm.
a way of trying to feel safe. So the brain hijack is when our brain sees the person we love or the people in our life as dangerous
Wow.
and attacks them. So no matter how many tools, communication skills, tools you have, our brain will still see our partner a lot of times as dangerous
Hmm.
because it gets hijacked and it says danger, danger because it's our brain is constantly scanning for danger.
Sure. But the first thing that was going through my head when you were talking about that scanning part was just going back to like fight or flight. That's the basic concept I
Yes.
know. It's like that. Is that basic intuition, right?
Yes.
So we get into this like hyper survival mode, like you're talking about. We take care of ourselves. We either got to fight through the situation or we got to get out of there. And if we're and
Yeah.
you're kind of saying a lot of times that we put ourselves into that situation when we don't need to be in that situation and kind of controlling ourselves and kind of figuring out when do we really need to be in fight or flight essentially, or when do we this isn't one of those situations. Why are we here right now? What's going on with that? Okay, I see you're
Yes.
smiling at me. I know I'm getting
Okay.
something right there. Good.
Yeah, you totally are. So that's the thing is our brain gets hijacked. And as a child, we don't see that a lot of times, and that's what a lot of the grounding tools are for. As we get older, we learn to start manipulating what's around us so that our brain won't get hijacked.
Mm.
But it doesn't work long term. It may work for that moment, but then it doesn't work long term. So that's why I created the brain to heart code, which is the skills to help us no longer get caught in the fight, flight, or freeze or fawn. And so instead of getting hijacked, we can start getting grounded in our body. I call it the brain to heart code because it literally, our heart has, and a lot of people don't know this, our heart has its own nervous system.
Mm.
Our gut has its own nervous system.
Hmm.
Those nervous systems communicate with our brain nervous system. So getting in touch with our heart nervous system so that we can ground and feel safe. So when our brain, our reptile brain, that's on our brain stem, when it says danger, danger, when we can connect to our heart and our gut, we can go, oh no, that's not danger. We're okay. We're
I
safe.
love that. Sometimes my brain tells me we're in a good spot. My gut's giving me butterflies. And it's like, come on, guys, just get on the same page for once. It'd be very helpful. Oh,
Yes.
yeah, it's crazy. Ugh.
Yeah. And that takes working together to get us all on the same page. Our gut intuition, our gut nervous system, our heart nervous system, our head nervous
Mhm.
system. And so it takes practice, like checking in with them, paying attention to them. Most of us know, I don't know, my thought is most of us know that we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day.
Oh,
Our brain tells us a lot of unuseful information and we believe it. And that's where it's so easy for our brain to get hijacked because our brain, let's say your partner pauses for a second
mhm.
and you're like, they don't like what I said.
Right.
Or they take an hour to return a text and we're like, they're mad at me.
It's true.
Or they may roll their eyes at something and we go, "Oh my gosh, they're mad at me. They think what I said was dumb." And that's our brain starting to get hijacked.
Wow. 60 to 80,000 thoughts. I'm having some right now where I'm just movie lines are flowing through my head right now, Diane. It's just crazy. Plus, we're having a conversation. It's just, I can't remember half of, I was going to say, I can't remember half. I can't remember 99% of what my brain tells me. So it's just random stuff like,
And
uh,
that's not a bad
oh,
thing
good.
to not be able to remember half of what it tells us. Because most of what it tells us, so and I forget the exact numbers, but I think it's 90% of what our brain tells us today is actually what it thought of yesterday and the day before. It's regurgitated thoughts.
Could have used those thoughts yesterday
And what our hijacked brain will tell us
Mhm.
is they're facts when they're just thoughts.
because it had time to process it and that something like that. It's like by the time we hear it, it's like, oh, it's been around a while. It must be true because we lived it in a while.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, man.
So when we hear it yesterday, the day before, we start to believe it. Acceptance and commitment therapy says we buy into it.
Mm,
We have a thought over and over, and then we buy into it and we make it ours.
okay.
And so, one of the ways to start unhijacking our brain is to start checking and going, is that a thought I really want to have? Is that thought really true?
Interesting. It's like a marketing thing. There's things where you tell a lie long enough becomes the truth to most people, right? It's kind of the same thing you're saying here.
Yeah.
People don't remember the origin of the truth or
Yes.
the falsehood of it. They just remember the truth now. It's the
Yes.
Mandela effect too
And so, when
sometimes,
people say things,
right?
say that
It's
again.
like the Mandela effect sometimes too, where you've seen things spelled a certain way or said a certain way or an event happened a certain way, and you're like, I swear it happened this way. And you look back and like, no, it's not spelled that way or said that way, or that did not happen. But everybody thinks it did.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important. And one of the things I teach is words is neutral.
Mm,
Like words, a lot of times we add meaning to words. So again, going back to we have these thoughts
yeah.
always going. Our brain is always going. So when somebody says something, I use this example. I take my glasses and I'm like, if I went outside and I put cow poop on my glasses and I put them on, I would literally be looking through poopy glasses. So I would see the world that way. It's the same thing with our perception of reality as we are seeing the world through our lens of feeling rejected or they're mad at me. And so we add meaning to the words. So all of a
Mm,
sudden you could say, "Hey, how was your day?" And I hear, "Oh my gosh, how was your day? You're just always so grouchy."
wow. That is that's a lot to take in there. Because when you're dealing with people on a daily basis, like how do you as a I don't know, how do you as an individual handle that or maneuver through that when you're dealing with people on a daily basis? Like you can't have a full background sheet in front of you to know how somebody's acting or how somebody's feeling to know what specific phrase to say to them at that moment to make them not feel rejected or hurt, or how do we how do we cope through, how do we maneuver through that? Diane, let me know because I need the answers.
Yeah. Okay. And I love that question because that's really kind of it's very powerful, and I'll tell you why. It's not our job to say it a certain way to make sure what they because that's trying to control them.
Mm.
If I say it this way, then maybe you'll be okay with it. But if I say it this so that's trying to manipulate someone.
Oh,
So it's our job to speak our truth from a place of love, and how they interpret it is really up to them, as long as we do it from a place of love. So we have to be really careful because if I start saying, "Well, I'm going to say it this way so that he'll do this," that's manipulating.
okay. So let me go back to this question that I had written here about your upbringing and when the community fell
Yeah.
apart and everyone scattered and everyone went in different directions. We talked a little bit in our pre-interview about the basic concept of nature versus nurture. Everybody was in the same environment, but some people went on to do, you know, great things. Some people not so great, fell into
Yeah.
trouble. Some people succeeded. What is it going through that and then looking back at it now? What does that teach you about wiring versus environment, especially when it comes to the brain, the heart code?
Yeah. So that is, I think, probably part of the reason I got into mental health. I think part of it was I learned to read people. I was not because of dyslexia. I was not book smart, and part of it is because I was fascinated with how did we all come from. I think there was 26 of us kids. How did we all come from such the same environment, exposed to the same abuse, and we all grew up so differently? And I think I personally think there is so much more that is inside of us that is, I don't want to say, yeah, nature inside of us that creates who we are.
Mhm.
Because I watched that. We were all raised in the same environment and we just all took and handled it so differently. It kind of comes back to we can have the same trauma and experience it so differently. Our
Oh,
ability to cope with it and experience it is so different. And that is one of the things that got me really curious about understanding people is how do we like what makes somebody successful and somebody else not? And so the study of resilience is also clearly part of that. But yeah, it definitely, growing up in that environment definitely influenced us all. But interestingly, it influenced us all different. And there were families that were, some families left and were total overachievers. And there were some families that left that got kind of messed up in other unhealthy things.
mhm.
And the reason why we will never probably know.
Now, one of the things that you teach that flips traditional advice upside down is that communication isn't the problem, safety is. And that idea alone can change everything.
Yes.
So, how, when we talk about communication and why do communication tools fall apart? Why do they fall apart when someone's nervous system still doesn't feel safe, especially the communication tools that we talked about?
Yeah. So there's this idea that if we communicate better, if we figure out how to say the words differently, if we even getting curious, one of my big things is get curious with your partner
Mm,
or your people in your life. But those things cannot work if my brain is hijacked. If my brain is telling me you're danger, if my brain is literally flashing danger, 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 then I am going to fight, flight, or freeze or fawn,
mm,
or well, I'm gonna do one of those 4. I am not gonna be able to access the part of my brain, my prefrontal wise brain. I can't access that to use better communication skills, to learn to understand that this is their love language or any of those, even to get curious. I because if you think about it, I like to use the idea of this soil. Like if you go and plant a flower in soil, but the soil is
mhm,
toxic, it can't grow. The flower can't grow no matter how much you water it, no matter how much you journal and tell it should. If it's toxic soil, it can't. And in that moment, unintentionally, our brain is hijacked. It can't use the skills it has been taught. So those skills are still good skills. It's just in that moment, your brain can't access them.
Now, when someone's going through that and they're getting ready to experience that, like they're fine. Now they're in a situation, their brain is starting to get hijacked. Is there something that happens to them neurologically? Is there signs that they could see within themselves to recognize to pull themselves out of that?
Yeah. So there is something that happens biologically. They can't necessarily see that. So we'll talk about so John Gottman talks about he did like a bed and breakfast and studied couples. And one of the things he talks about is we lose access to our prefrontal cortex. So
Mm,
our when we get hijacked, we don't have the ability to use our prefrontal. So we go into fight, flight, or freeze. And the way he describes it is it's like trying to take out your thigh bone and hand it to somebody. You literally can't do that. You literally cannot problem solve when you're in this state of mind.
okay.
And so the answer, because you can use communication and curiosity and all those things later, but you can't in that moment. So the answer is getting in touch and grounding yourself in your body and building a relationship. And this is why, again, I'd call it the brain to heart code, really building a relationship with your heart, getting in touch with what's happening in my heart, what's happening in my gut, where do I feel it in my body. So it is grounding tools. And a lot of people will say, well, mindset. And I'm like, this isn't about mindset. It's not about thinking. Now, their mindset is powerful. I don't want to
Right.
minimize that. But you can't have great mindset when your brain is hijacked.
I love that. That's a good quote. I'm gonna use that. You should use it too.
Yeah,
It's a great quote. You and I actually, I know.
I will.
You and I connected over the emotional safety patterns that show up everywhere, especially within in money. And as a money coach, talking to people about their triggers around emotional spending and how they were brought up and things like that, and how those patterns also are wiring patterns carry over into things like finance. Besides finances, like career and decision making. Um, what I've noticed in some of those situations is you can start to see the patterns that show up that's going to bring them into this situation where they aren't going to think about what's going on. They're just going to react by pulling this safety net together around themselves of emotional spending and surround themselves with something of comfort. And a lot of times that spending is releasing some sort of endorphin in them that makes them feel comfortable and happy in the moment and takes them away from the trauma that they're experiencing around them that led them to that. Um, and so trying to find the exact trigger points when they start to go down that path, it's been a work in progress for a lot of us, even for myself. Are we? Do you see any of those um, patterns that start to develop when people get into this fight or flight mode with in your experience, where you can start seeing like, all right, I know we're grounding ourselves and stuff, but is there a point before that where people can start to recognize within themselves, I'm getting there, and then we start grounding myself, or I'm already there, and now I got to pull myself out. Is there? I know we can't really think when we're in there, but is there anything that we could sort of get to that might be like, okay, I'm heading down that path. I want to know for myself because I think I'm there half the time.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, what you're talking about, in my opinion, is I call the wise watcher, where you start to watch yourself. And one of the things I do is I literally step out and I'm on the right side of my body. I will picture myself on the right side of my body
Mhm.
watching me. And I am watching what I'm thinking. I'm watching. So, and with all, I call them addictions, but all like shopaholic, um, sexting,
Mhm.
porn, drugs, alcohol, I teach the same thing, is learning how to become the wise watcher and notice when you are what you're thinking, what's happening for you, and step outside of you. So if you think about, can you read a piece of paper right here
No,
up against your
no,
nose? No. Why?
it's it's too blurry. It's too close to my face. My eyes can't focus.
That's it. It's too close. It's too close so you can't focus. And that's what happens with all these things is we're too close to them. We are in it. So we can't watch it.
Mm.
So when we picture ourselves outside of ourselves watching, we become the wise watcher. What am I thinking? What are my urges? What am I feeling? I'm feeling an urge to go do this thing because I want to feel better. Everything we do is to feel better. So I have an urge to go shop or spend money to feel better.
Wow.
So what I teach people is build your relationship with yourself so you can recognize your urge to go do these things, and that requires you to start watching yourself and noticing yourself. What do I do when I start to get, and a lot of us have patterns. Every day or two, we have the same kind of pattern. I start, it's kind of like a clock. You get 12 o'clock every
Mhm.
12 hours. It's the same thing with us. We have a pattern. A day or two, we don't shop, then we shop again, then we feel guilty. And then because we feel guilty, we feel like crap. So then I want to shop again to get a dopamine hit to feel better.
You're chasing a high. Okay. So you
Yes. Yeah. And what happens is we
mhm.
shame ourselves for doing it and then we feel bad. So then we do it again because we want to feel better.
Now you were talking a little bit there when the wise watcher we were talking about is this sort of like a self-awareness element like to yourself? Like you're just becoming okay.
Yes. Yes. So the first step that I teach is starting to notice your thoughts. So you just start
Mhm.
watching your thoughts. Like you can categorize them like I'm thinking about purchasing. I'm thinking how I wish I hadn't purchased. Like you categorize them into different
Mhm.
categories of thoughts. And then you start to notice what's happening in your body. When I think about shopping, what happens to my body? Does it tense up? Do I get an urge? Do I feel like I have to get up and move? Like what's so the wise watcher starts increasing what you notice for you what the symptoms are when you have an urge to
Okay.
do something.
Do you find in this scenario and the situation when people have self-awareness, does it automatically create emotional safety or they still have to work at emotional safety?
Yeah. Yeah. Self-awareness is the start. But then we have to rewire the brain. And here's what I teach. I mean, this is science, so we know this to be true. We have a neuropath
Okay.
in our brain. We have a neuropath of getting a dopamine hit by shopping or whatever it is. We have to create a new neuropath. So just getting the insight that I have an issue and I get an urge to shop every day or two and overspend and regret that I overspend. So I teach people to build a relationship with their money, and that's a whole different kind of topic, but I teach really building that relationship just like you have a relationship with friends and family, you build your relationship with money the same
Absolutely.
kind of way. Um, but the first thing is to start moving to a new neuropath. So we have a neuropath that we have built over and over and over. We are creating a new neuropath by not reacting and doing our urge. And so over time, we create a new neuropath. As we sleep, the old neuropath covers and we reinforce the new neuropath. Over time, it'll get easier to pull ourselves back into the new neuropath and we'll stay there longer. But it's a process. Insight is not the
Yeah.
solution. The solution is the changes you
So it
make.
sounds like when you're talking about that and going through that process of getting there longer and longer and longer, it's like training anything you're doing. Like if you're training at the gym or you're losing weight or whatever you're doing or being
Yes.
proficient at something, it's 10,000 hours to be a master at something. It's not something, whatever that old saying is, it's not something you're going to learn over time, but it's something that you're going to progressively get better at. And then then you'll have this longer path. Like, okay. I see. It's not an overnight fix.
Yeah, it is not. And the part that is so important is never to beat yourself up when you
Mm,
mess up. There's this concept of write it down and move on. So I work with a lot of people with alcohol, over drinking, professionals that overdrink, and we write it down and move on. You don't shame yourself because the minute you start shaming yourself, then you want another drink because you feel bad. So don't shame yourself for overspending. You're like, yeah, I don't like how I showed up with my money. I'm gonna change that and then let it go, move
yeah,
on.
that's one of the things we talk to with my clients is don't hold it in either. Like get it out, talk about it, we move on from it. But if you internalize it more often, then you're sitting with those thoughts longer. Yeah, and then you're never gonna. Then your gut starts to go, and your brain starts to react, and you're
Yeah.
never gonna have that connection. Well, actually, this leads me
Yeah.
to. Oh,
So what I teach my clients to
no, no,
do,
go ahead.
go ahead. I teach my clients to sit with the urge. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is, but whatever the urge is, just to sit with it and notice, where do I feel it in my body? What are the thoughts that I'm thinking about the urge? And just be present with it, because then it's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
desensitizing ourselves The more you can experience the urge and not react to it, not take action on it, the less intense the urge
Yeah,
becomes over
we
time.
enact a rule sometimes with our clients where if it's a certain dollar amount, they have to sit with it for 24 hours before making the purchase, just so they're not reacting with it right away. And then they can,
Yeah.
do I really need it? No, I really don't. Glad I didn't make that purchase, rather than be feeling regretful about it and have that urge to, like, feel remorseful. So just sit with it. If you still want it in 24 hours, go ahead and buy it. If you still need it. If it's just a random purchase,
Yeah.
maybe not.
Yeah. I teach my clients 3 rules to buying
Yep.
something. You gotta love it, it's gotta be useful, or oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget the 3rd one. You love it, it's useful, or
Yeah.
brings
I love that.
value of some kind.
That's great advice there too. I love that. In our pre-interview, you said something that I found incredibly powerful, and that was, I had to learn to soothe myself and not to depend on a partner or a friend to make me feel okay. So, as we get into this self leadership and
Yeah.
love, self leadership for ourselves, what does self leadership and love actually look like in practice?
So, for me, what I teach is that self-leadership is really leading your emotions. It doesn't mean a lot of times people wanna
Hmm.
manage them, and they wanna be, like, managing their emotions and what I wanna suggest is you just
Mm.
lead them. You experience them, you lean into them. We don't resist emotions, but you build a relationship with them. You're like, "I'm angry," and that's okay to be angry. What do I wanna do with that anger? Or I'm disappointed in myself. And so loving ourself, they're kind of two different. Self leadership is part of the skill to loving ourselves. But loving ourselves, the way I teach it, and I use it I write it out on my board that I keep over here, is we are all 100% lovable, valuable, and worthy. It's not a choice. We were created, we're human. We have that because we're human, in my
Hmm.
opinion. That's what I teach. So my lovability is not in question. It's just that I have to believe it. I have to step into the person who believes that because I'm human, I'm lovable. And somebody else's, and this is where I use the diagram, somebody else's ability to love me is a reflection of them, not of me.
Mm.
So, and this is where I draw two stick people, and I'm like, my ability over here to love this person is a reflection of me. Their ability to love me is a reflection of them. I am a lovable no matter what. Doesn't I am 100% lovable, valuable, and worthy no matter what. So when I can start to believe that and step into that person, then I don't need to purchase things to feel lovable.
Kind of reminds me, we were talking about, like, getting up in the morning and daily affirmations in the mirror to yourself and kind of confirming to yourself that you are worthy, lovable, beautiful, spectacular, awesome, amazing. Stuff I tell myself every day.
Yes. Awesome. So here's what this is, and again, this is what I teach. I'm not saying it's right. This is what I teach. I feel like affirmations fall short a lot of times because if I say I love my body, but I don't, they're
Mm.
like empty words. So I teach people to do transition thoughts. So let's take it back to money just because. But if I am saying I love how I spend my money, I love how I spend my money, but I don't really, then there's a cognitive dissonance. I believe this way, but I
Sure.
want to believe this way. So I've got to be able to close the gap, and that's called the river of misery, closing the gap of those. And so we have to make them steps. Like I'm learning to love how I spend money. I'm excited about spending money in a wise way. I'm give myself permission to spend money in a
Mhm.
wise way. And so we have to make transition thoughts that get us there for us to really believe it. So we can step into that person.
I love that. Now, I love it.
What
I
do you
mean,
think about that?
it's this, like, 2 steps forward, 1 step back kinda thing. You're never gonna you fail forward. There's all these phrases I've been hearing lately about, these processes of getting to an end game. You're never gonna go from 0 to 100. It's a long game, and you're gonna
Yeah.
fail. But if you're failing forward, or take a step back and reevaluate and keep going, it's like you're gonna get there. And it's basically what we're talking about. Yeah, I'm hearing it so many different ways, Diane. Somebody's telling me something somewhere about what I should be doing. So at least I'm getting some value out of it for myself. Um,
Awesome. I heard you on another podcast talking to somebody about the failing it forward, and I like that. There's another concept that I use a lot with my clients is failing ahead
mm,
of time. A lot of times people will be like, "Forget it. I can't do it. It's too hard." And they'll want to give up. And I'm like, that's failing ahead of time. Instead of even trying, we just fail before we even start. So I will call, and they maybe
mhm.
aren't that blunt about it, but I will call my clients out when I'm like, "You're starting to fail ahead of time. You're already convincing yourself you can't do it before you even tried."
Man, I used to think that way a long time ago. Nah, I take that back. I never really thought that way too much. I always would get to I always had a fear of failure of success. That was my hang up. It's this, I get all the way to the end of
Mhm.
something, and then it lived in this for so long that my fear was what comes next after that and failing in that, because I was so successful and never succeeding that I was gonna be failure and success.
That's but that's a real thing. Fear of failure at success. Like I succeeded
Yeah,
and then what? And then how do I keep it? A lot of people are like, how do I keep this status? How do I keep this level of
yeah.
success
Now,
going?
one of the things we talked about too, and this is
So,
I've practiced this so many times to make sure I got it right and I didn't get tongue tied on it, was pattern repatterning. Pattern repatterning. Can you tell me a little bit about that and how that's
yes.
different from therapy, journaling, or communication skills?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's kind of what we talked about, but I didn't call it pattern repattern. But the idea is a lot, and this is where people will say
Mhm,
mindset shifts or um, learning new skills. And what I'm talking about with pattern repatterning is we are literally repatterning our brain. We are rewiring. Our brain is designed. So if you think about back in the day, when we were first human beings, we had
mhm,
to be part of a community. We had wiring that said, if your community rejects you, you will die. We had wiring that said, we must fit in and belong because if our community exiled us, we can't live on our own. So we have all of these old patterning that says, and I think this is why so many people have anxiety in some ways because we have wiring in our brain that says
mhm.
danger, danger, but there isn't danger in our life anymore like there used to be. So, pattern repatterning is really rewiring our brain. It is training our brain that we are safe now and that nobody's hurting us, even though our brain is like danger, danger so much, because our brain is designed for that. And one of the examples I use is if you think about like a lot of times people will say to me, "So our brain is sabotaging us." And I'm like, "Well, yes and no." And I use the example if you have a big dog, so I have a lab. If you have a big dog and somebody comes up to the house,
Mhm.
your dog barks, right?
Yeah.
But is your dog going to hurt them? Is your dog malicious?
Depends how you train them, I guess. Right? Generally, no. Yeah.
Generally, the answer is no. Generally, domesticated dogs
Yeah.
are not gonna hurt someone. So it's just misguided. It's just misguided, and that's the thing with our brain. It's not malicious. It's not trying to hurt us.
Mhm.
It's misguided. It's and so this is where the pattern repatterning comes in is we're retraining the dog who's barking at everybody to say, "Hey, there's actually some people that don't need barked at." Actually, this isn't so it's our brain isn't meaning to sabotage us, it's just misguided. And the pattern repatterning is repatterning it to feel safe. So it's not mindset work, it's not learning tools, it's repatterning your
Now
brain.
I wanna shift back a little bit to something we talked about earlier, which was the people pleasing part of emotional control and stuff, and saying yes a lot of times. You were talking about that being more of a manipulative towards the other person as opposed to yourself. I wanna do a
Yeah.
quick deep dive on that because I was the type of person who, when somebody asked me to do something, I would say yes, and more so that I wanted to be in their good graces for things maybe for later on. Maybe I'm manipulating them to help me out down the line without even me thinking about it. But um, so I would stress myself out and overbook myself and get really busy in my calendar by saying yes to too many things because I wanted to be the one that always showed up and the one I can always count on and this and that. And when I started saying no or started protecting my time or protecting my calendar a little bit more, um, I've actually gotten a lot more done with people than I had before. So a lot of times people who are just starting in business feel
Yeah.
like they want to say yes to everything, yes to every assignment, yes to every lead that comes in. And, they probably leads to burnout mostly and stuff like that. So could you talk a little bit about that aspect of people pleasing and protecting yourself and maybe kind of dialing back from that and how it's okay to say no sometimes?
Yeah. I think it's okay to say no
Okay.
lots myself now. So I hear you, and I'll share real quick. I used to be the friend that was there for everybody else. I would go to their house to see them, I would meet them places. I was always inconveniencing me for other people. And I started realizing that I didn't even ask that of them. I didn't expect them to go out of their way. It was always I just
Mm,
assumed I was always that one. And I started to it wasn't that I resented them. I started to realize that I was not loving me. That I was like always I was starting to resent me for being the one that always was the one to compromise or chase after them. So here's what I teach people now is I actually had a client, and it's been a couple years now, but she texted me after session and she said, I still don't understand why people pleasing is a problem. If I want to make people happy, why is that a problem? And here's why it's a problem. And it's a couple reasons. First of all, it's manipulative. If I say yes when I want to say no, I'm actually breaking my relationship with me.
mm,
I am agreeing against
wow.
my own will. And so, what I teach all of my clients, and one of the first things I do in a first session is my relationship with myself is the most important earthly relationship I have. And so, if I break my relationship with myself all the time,
Hmm.
I'm not trustworthy. I may be trustworthy for everyone else, show up for everyone else, but I'm not trustworthy for me. So, I teach people you've got to be trustworthy for you and show up for you, and then you can show up for other people. And then it's not manipulative or people pleasing because you're honoring you. So when you start saying yes to things that you don't really feel yes to, you chip off a part of yourself. And over time, and here's what people will say is I just feel so cold, so disconnected, so unvalued, and it's not because of what other people are doing. It's because of what you're doing with your relationship with yourself.
Wow. Okay. I love that. I'm gonna get up.
Tell me
I
what
was
you
about
think.
to
You
lay
can
down on the
disagree.
couch and go for a session, but I might just put a green screen behind me of the therapist's office at this point. 'Cause man, that was powerful, Diane. Oof. It makes me realize that for at least for me, and this is probably a good spot to be in is I know I need a lot more work, but I realize that and I'm working towards it rather than feeling like I've done all I can do and there's no growth left. So I've come out of that pattern of like, this is it for me to this is just the beginning for me. And I got a lot more to do. And then living in that moment and pushing forward and being positive, at least that is
Yeah.
like, that's what at least been loving myself as much, protecting my time, protecting my calendar, saying no to certain people, but not saying no maliciously, say, I can't do this now, but let's find the right time to do it together later. Um, because I'll be honest with you, there was a time in the last 3 or 4 years where we had a lot of family turmoil. We had a lot of family illness and sickness and severe things happen to my dad and to my wife. And um, you find out who your community is in times of need. Like we were the ones that would show up for everybody, and then when it's our turn for people to show up for us, nobody's showing up, or the different people we thought would show up wouldn't show up, or weren't there, or didn't know how. Didn't let me think. Didn't know how to show up because we didn't communicate with them what we needed or in that relationship process. So I don't want to shame anybody for not showing up, but they didn't know what we needed, so they didn't know how to show up. We thought we knew how to show up for others. People didn't know how to show up for us because we didn't communicate that. So we're better about that now. Like, and again, it's how people see us and how we see them. Like it's not a quid pro quo relationship. It's not a equal parts. If I show up for Diane 5 times this month and I need you 5 times next month and you don't
Yeah.
show up 5 times, I'm like, oh God, darn, Diane's putting more work in. Because it's not how the relationship is. I might be able to give you more than you give me, but that's just how the relationship is.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I think that something you said really popped out for me because one of my clients years ago, she said there's givers and takers. And I
Mm,
hadn't really thought of it that way. But I think there is some truth to there's natural givers and there's natural takers who don't have a problem taking. But the problem is the givers don't know how to ask for and set boundaries around what they
yeah,
want. I don't think there's anything wrong with being a taker particularly. I think the problem is that the givers don't know how to say, "Hey, I actually need you to come to me and here's what I need from you and here's how you
yeah.
can
That's
help
very
me."
difficult for people, especially in solopreneurs or business owners themselves too, because they're trying. Some are very good at it. Some will ask all day long what they need from others and get support. And there's, like you said, others will just try to go at it alone, and that's the worst way to go. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a team. And you need a team around you, whether it's people in your business, a
Yep.
community around you to support you, or just somebody that you can ask questions of and get help with. You need somebody around. You can't do it yourself. That's the hardest thing to ask for. But the hardest thing to do is ask for help.
Yeah.
I'm getting better at it.
Yeah. And what I teach people is to practice. Like, literally, I teach people to take their phone and record themselves on their phone
Oh wow.
asking for help for what they want and listen back. Do I sound confident? Do I sound secure? Do I like how I'm asking? Here's what I have a lot of women say to me is when I ask for help, I shrink physically. I'm like, "Hey, can you do?" I'm like, "No, grow into yourself and
Wow.
ask for help." So that's why I tell people, like, record and listen. Do I make
Mm-hmm.
myself sound small when I ask for help?
Yeah, because I can. Right.
Because there's nothing wrong with
Right.
asking
Because I
for
can be
help
like,
and
hey,
being
Diane,
big
I
about
need your help on a project I'm working on. Or I could be like, Diane, need your help on a project I'm working on. Are you okay with that? Completely. I'm asking you the same thing, but completely different results I'm going to get.
it. Yeah.
Okay. It's like confidence versus the, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so really practicing learning how and what I talk to people about too is like speak from your gut. A lot of us will speak like when we're asking for help and we don't really want to ask for help. We speak more of a
Mm-hmm.
squeaky whiny voice or and so really getting down in your gut and being and feeling finding your voice when you ask for
All
help.
right. All right. All
So,
right, Diane.
did that
It
answer
did.
your
Now,
question around
Diane,
people
I need your help
pleasing?
now. It's time for our prosperity round, rapid fire round, 10
Go
questions.
for it.
First thing that comes to your mind. See how I propped
Okay.
myself up there and I was talking from my gut? Yes. All right. Here
Yeah.
we go, Diane. You ready? What's the best book you've ever read that changed your
Yes.
perspective?
I would say, now I'm gonna draw a blank. Sermon on the Mount,
What's a
by Emmett
daily
Fox.
habit that contributes most to your success?
Oh, I would say talking to myself and really
Love it.
soothing and having conversations with
Love it.
myself. I'm my own
What's the
therapist.
worst financial or business mistake you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
Oh, I used to make a lot. Gosh, I hate to say this. This has been in the last couple years. I got burned. I purchased I don't even remember the company that said $2,500 and we'll do podcasts for you and we'll get them publicized and all this stuff. And it was a horrible experience. And I felt so much shame that I got hooked into something and it was non refundable. And I felt so much shame that I bought into it and didn't research it enough.
Mm,
And yeah, so I had to really do a lot of work on my
a
experience with
lot
it.
of us in this community, when we're getting started out, have been there, done that, some way, shape, or form. So you don't feel bad. If you could have dinner with any entrepreneur, past or present, who would it be?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, I don't know. I could say
Yeah.
he's dead, but a spiritual guru, but I don't know of any entrepreneurs that I
Let's
would
use your spiritual guru again. Let's go with that guy.
wanna do dinner with. Um, oh my gosh, now I'm gonna forget Wayne Dyer. He was when I was really doing a lot of
Mhm.
spiritual growth in my 20s, I
All
listened to
right.
him all the time.
What's
Wayne
one
Dyer.
mindset shift that completely changed the game for you?
That mind management and managing my own thoughts is a lifetime journey. I will
What's a
always have
piece
to
of
do it.
advice you ignored at first but later realized was complete gold?
Our relationship with ourself is the most important relationship we
What's
have.
one word you use to describe your journey so far?
Blessed. And maybe there's supposed to be short answers, but I am shocked all the time because I didn't think someone like me could have a life I have. So I
If
feel
you
so
had to start
blessed.
over tomorrow with nothing but what's in your head, what's the first thing you do?
Mm. Uh, it's
Love
supposed
it.
to be rapid fire. I'd say I would just start getting online and creating clients
Love that.
to coach and
What's
counsel.
one thing people misunderstand about you or your work?
I don't know. Um, I want to say, but I don't even know. I and I could be wrong on this. I feel like a lot of people are pulling out the coach shingle, but they don't really get the responsibility of really
Mm,
leading somebody in coaching.
that's a great answer.
Like, yes, you aren't they are the responsible for them, but you are their like they're turning to you and so really taking the seriousness of you better know your stuff and be able to really help someone if you're going
And
to say
finally,
you can.
what's your personal definition of prosperity?
Mm, giving back. I just love giving back. Like,
That's awesome. Diane,
yeah.
this has been incredible. For listeners who want to go deeper into your brain to heart code and connect with you, where can they find you?
Powerful questions with an S coaching.com. Again, powerful questions coaching.com. Under work with me, there is a free quiz you can take that tells you what kind of brain hijack you tend to do. And then also there is a 20-minute video you can watch on how to work
And do
on
you have
ending the
any
brain hijack.
mini courses or anything available for people?
That is it right now, the
Okay.
20-minute I call it a mini course, the 20-minute brain hijack mini
Sweet.
course. That is what I have right now. I am
Perfect. So
creating
stay
more,
connected
but
because you're
that's
going
what
to
I've
get
got
more
right now.
information from her as you go along. So Diane, thank you so much. I'll put all that information into the description as well, so people can click on the links and go there. Thank you again for your honesty, your courage, and your insight. You've given our audience a clear understanding of themselves and a path toward emotional safety that starts on the inside. And for everyone listening, thank you for spending time with us. If this episode moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, stay faithful, stay fearless, and remember freedom lives where faith and action meet. The lounge is always open, and so is your next breakthrough. This is the Prosperity Lounge. If you recognize yourself in the shutdown, the people pleasing, the overthinking, or the quiet bracing around the person you love most, that wasn't coincidence. Diane shared something very powerful today. You don't struggle in love because you're failing. You struggle because your nervous system learned to survive before it learned to feel safe. And the good news is that wiring can change. If you're ready to take the first step, not a massive leap, not years in therapy, and not convincing your partner to change, Diane has created a simple, focused starting point. You can find the Brain to Heart mini course at her website, powerfulquestionscoaching.com. The link will be in the description below. It's a short, powerful experience designed for emotionally intelligent, high achieving individuals who want to understand why love feels off and how to reconnect without losing themselves. Inside, you'll learn what the brain hijack really is, why emotional shutdown happens, and how to begin creating calm, safety, and truth in your relationship, starting with you. As always, thank you for spending time with us. If this episode inspired you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And as always, stay faithful, stay fearless, and remember, freedom lives where faith and action meet. The lounge is always open, and so is your next breakthrough. This is the Prosperity Lounge.